October 2011 to begin his assignment here in Jamaica as United Nations Resident Coordinator and Resident Representative for UNDP. And since assuming office in Jamaica, he has been working assiduously with his colleagues from the other UN agencies, with multilateral banks, with the other international donor partners in assisting the government of Jamaica in achieving its National Development Plan, Vision 2030. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Kashyap.
Honorable Julian Robinson, Minister of State, Ministry of Science, Technology, Energy and Mining, Mr. Crispin Gregoire, Chief Strategic Monitoring and Support for UNDP Caribbean Country Offices at the UNDP headquarters, Mr. David Barrett, Chairman of the Energy and Environment Committee of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, distinguished participants, guests, and I must particularly recognize one person among the participants, that's Dr. Al Binger, my earlier colleague, and I must confess who also was the one who hired me to the Rockefeller Foundation. Welcome, Al, and we benefited a lot from our discussions on energy. A very good morning to all of you. I would like to take the opportunity to welcome you all to the launch of the United Nations Secretary General's Sustainable Energy for All initiative in Jamaica at the first Public-Private Dialogue Forum. This forum is an integral component of the UNDP-funded project on capacity development for energy efficiency and security in Jamaica that is being implemented by the Ministry of Science, Technology, Energy and Mining. Thank you for being here. I know that our Madam Chair had mentioned this is a very fitting start. It indeed is a fitting start because when you look outside, there's a bright sun and there's breeze blowing, but inside we had to start late because we didn't have enough power. Each year, the United Nations chooses a globally important issue that impacts the human quality of life. It was microcredit in 2005, sanitation in 2008, biodiversity 2010, and this is to bring attention to these vital issues and to catalyze resources to resolve and promote them. Early this year, when the UN Secretary General designated 2012 as the International Year of Sustainable Energy for All, he also launched a global initiative by the same name, Sustainable Energy for All, with the aim of reaching its set goals by 2030. Those goals include providing access to modern services for all, doubling the rate of improvement in energy efficiency, and doubling the share of renewable energy in the national energy mix. Fortuitously, for us in Jamaica, the timing of the UN Secretary General's initiative is well aligned with that of the National Development Plan, Vision 2030 Jamaica. Recognizing the critical role of the private sector in meeting the unmet needs of access to sustainable energy, the United Nations is working globally on setting up a high-level group from business, finance, government, and civil society to spearhead this action. Sustainable energy is about powering future. While it is not the be-all and end-all, it is a prerequisite for inclusive development, creation of equitable opportunities for a better quality of life for all, providing education for children, creating jobs, and ensuring all of us are healthy to enjoy our lives and livelihoods. For instance, a recent opinion piece in New York Times, it was entitled, "Will Drought Cause the Next Blackout?" highlights the very obvious connection between energy and water. Producing energy requires vast amounts of water, and treating water for human consumption, as we in Jamaica know it very well, requires energy. Apparently, we draw more water from the energy sector, than for agriculture, thereby producing a double whammy as water problems become energy problems. And as the United Nations Secretary General has said, achieving sustainable energy for all is not only possible, it is necessary. I would also posit that energy sector in Jamaica has the largest potential to make the country competitive and improve the quality of life of every Jamaican by enhancing equity, dignity, happiness, and sustainability. It is important for all of us to devote some time to envision how we all can contribute to the government's effort to achieve equitable development in line with its Vision 2030 Jamaica. Currently, we all know Jamaica faces a high debt to GDP ratio. At nearly 140%, it obviously limits the fiscal space for social development that in turn adversely influences employment, trade deficit, and capital flows, and increases citizen insecurity. Apparently, real per capita income today is the same as it was in 1973, and the economy has on an average grown by only 0.8% in the past 40 years. Following 3 years of negative growth, Jamaica's economy grew by 1.5% in 2011. In 2012, the government expects debt servicing and public sector wages to account for nearly 78% of the budget. When we compare this to the national expenditure on health and education, which together accounts for only 20% of the budget, it brings home the gravity of national indebtedness. With 25% of national GDP in 2010 being spent on oil imports, it is evident that the Jamaica would be unable to surmount the spiral of persistent indebtedness in the absence of significant energy reforms. And the average Jamaican consumer cannot sustain a good quality of life, and neither can the Jamaican private sector be competitive if they have to pay from 40 to 42 cents, US cents per kilowatt hour for utility services. As you know, the key input for producing aluminum is cheap energy, not local bauxite deposits. Not surprisingly, South Africa could develop aluminum exports without having bauxite, while Jamaica produces bauxite but cannot export aluminum. The need for energy reforms in Jamaica grows in considerable significance given that it has the highest energy intensity rate in the entire Latin America and the Caribbean region, and that the national energy demand is estimated to grow between 3 to 4% annually. We commend the leadership and very inclusive and progressive vision of Honorable Philip Paulwell and Honorable Julian Robinson that is guiding the growing discussion and on-the-ground activities in the country to make access to energy services universal, cost-effective, and sustainable. It is timely as they steer the country towards a much-needed change through energy sector reforms. The government's energy policy roadmap from 2009 to 2030 to transform the sector through energy efficiency and diversification, and its commitment to a minimum target of 30% in its portfolio by 2030 are tangible indications of their efforts. And the government has not only issued the first batch of net billing licenses and allowed sale of excess electricity generated by consumers to the national grid, it has decided to provide a preferential treatment to local suppliers to facilitate accomplishment of its objectives, while also exploring opportunities to allow wheeling of electric transmission in favor of a competitive generation system. You may have also heard a similar message from Honorable Paulwell this morning on the television. By lowering the cost of access to energy services, investments in sustainable energy would galvanize the private sector and creates jobs. The government's intent to catalyze the energy and energy efficiency market in Jamaica is sending a loud and clear signal to the nation, and especially the private sector in Jamaica, to gear up to meet the unmet demand in the country. It now depends upon the creativity and preparedness of the national private sector to ensure the presence of entrepreneurs with desired skills and capabilities in the country, who can evaluate the emerging demand, have an understanding of the projected demand in the near future, and be prepared to meet the targeted needs of diverse consumers at cost-effective prices. It is equally important for the private sector to shape new business models by incorporating creative financial mechanisms to address the barrier of steep upfront costs of sustainable energy services through viable mechanisms ranging from introduction of long-term fixed price contracts for electricity, creation of energy service companies to lease agreements based on monthly fees. The objectives of Sustainable Energy for All are in line with the government's Vision 2030 Jamaica and its commitment to provide cost-effective and sustainable energy services to all its citizens. We are therefore delighted that Honorable Julian Robinson has agreed to lead and launch the Sustainable Energy for All initiative in Jamaica today in partnership with UNDP. We are also very appreciative of the leadership provided by his team at the ministry in the successful organization of this event. We are hopeful that the Public-Private Dialogue Forum will galvanize support from the private sector for this initiative and stimulate the operations of this important strategy. Our considered optimism in the potential success of this initiative as a public-private partnership is in part guided by the continued dropping in price globally of the renewable energy. It's caused by advancement in technology, structural diversity of available technologies, as well as multiplicity of players in the field from different parts of the world, all factors that can further accelerate market creation. An adoption of the sustainable energy services strategies globally has been led by meaningful policy support both at the national and parish levels, state levels, and a viable regulatory and institutional environment. Policy support can catalyze markets for sustainable energy services through a diversity of incentives that are directed at market innovation, product acceptance, and supporting the development and adoption of cutting-edge technologies through lowering of installation costs and enhancing access to financing. The growing demand acts as a stimulus for the energy companies to vertically integrate and undertake innovations comprising cheaper access to the systems while reducing the upfront and operational cost to the consumers. And improvements in the national regulatory and institutional environment for businesses offer prospects for far more rapid impacts for local job creation and per capita economic growth. As announced by the Secretary General at the UN Conference on Sustainable Development, over 100 commitments and actions have already been mobilized in support of the UN's Global Sustainable Energy Initiative, and businesses and investors have committed over $50 billion to achieve the initiative's 3 objectives. UNDP, in cooperation with IDB, is gearing up to undertake a rapid assessment and gap analysis of Jamaica's energy sector very soon. The Sustainable Energy for All initiative is an example of a new way of working for the United Nations. That is, using its convening power to identify critical bottlenecks to renewables, efficiency, and universal access to energy, and then designing focused packages of policy incentives, public finance, and private capital. Under this initiative, the UN in Jamaica stands ready to assist the government in adapting policies that will allow it to make use of the available business opportunities in renewable energy while leveraging the falling prices. It would also present an opportunity to establish collaborative public-private partnerships that set specific renewable energy targets with coordinated efforts to achieve them. This is our opportunity to kickstart a transformative change in line with Vision 2030 Jamaica to make Jamaica a model island, low carbon resilient economy that presents an enviable place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. This would be a well-deserved initiative for Jamaicans as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of its independence, when Jamaica deserves nothing less. Thank you very much.